Watch The Atheist Experience live, Sundays at 4:30 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTAXP and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callaxp.
Hello and welcome to Truth Wanted, the call-in show every Friday night where we want to hear from you about what you believe and why. I'm Puck, and tonight I have a very special guest from all the way across the ocean, Emma Thorne. Emma, how are you doing tonight?
Hello, I'm doing fantastic. I'm really excited to be here.
You're excited. I've wanted to have you on this show for months, and I've never had the giggles coming onto the show before, but you saw this like just before the cameras came on, like while the credits were rolling. I was just giggling hysterically. Guys, Emma is so fun. This is going to be the most lit, most fun Truth Wanted show I've ever done. But one reason, Emma, I wanted you here is because we don't run around in the same circles, even though we have some, I guess we'll call them common opposition. But your community and my community, the circles don't have a lot of overlap. So tell us a little bit about yourself for our audience.
Sure. Well, I'm Emma, and I have a commentary channel. That's my main sort of space where I have my my gang, and we talk about some atheist stuff. We talk about pastors. I kind of have a bit of a thing for sort of consumer protection. So a lot of my stuff kind of stems from there. Anything scammy or that I feel is hurting people, I kind of will call out on my my channel. So we do a lot of anti-MLM stuff as well. And then talking about pastors and things. And then I have my little side gang of dedicated friends who join me for gaming stuff as well. And yeah, those if you see any ducks in the chat tonight, those are my people.
Oh, you know what? I gotta say this because when I was on with Apologia Plug, I was wearing the hockey shirt for his home team from where he used to live, and that was kind of my thing. Like I had an ordered Anaheim Ducks shirt that I was going to wear just for you tonight, just because of your Twitter name or your Twitch name and the graphic. But you know, there's a good time to bring this up because a lot of us content creators that the audience has, you know, grown to love, like, you know, you see me on here, you see you on your channel talking about what you do. We have a lot of things that we do publicly on the side that honestly we just do for fun, right?
Yeah, sure.
And how great is it when someone from that outside community comes into our gaming channels or just our personal discords just to hang out, just to talk, and just to get to know more about us than what you see, you know, on the atheist side. What's your experiences with that?
Oh, I love that. I like if somebody comes into my gaming streams and they're like, I don't really know how Twitch works. I just wanted to say hi and see what's going. I was like, oh yes, okay. Well, currently I'm failing at things and being an idiot and being really annoying. So that's what we do here. But it's just, yeah, it's nice to have that more casual kind of back and forth. And because it tends to be like a smaller crowd as well, you get to do like, you get to really like actually chat to people, usually about total nonsense, but it's like a more nice kind of personal, thing.
No, and it's such a different energy, isn't it? Because you do mostly pre-recorded content, and you know you get to fix pacing issues or script issues. You can re-record as many times as you need to get it right. But there's such a different energy about doing it live. Now I'm on the opposite side, right? Almost all of my content is live. I don't have that experience of writing out a script for an hour-long video, which you've done, and I have to imagine that we see 1 hour. What you've put into it is probably like 20, right? From writing to editing to finding all the right clips. So
it tends, it tends to be for me like the the long form stuff, I don't overly script because otherwise it is a bit hard to. It can be a bit, a bit too scripted for, especially if it's like super long.
Right.
If I'm like reacting to video content, I tend not to. I just go off the cuff of what I'm reacting to, just because otherwise. So there's bits of my stuff that looks more like the streaming stuff, but there's nothing like the live experience. Like, you don't get this, for example. I wouldn't be going in a pre-recorded video, but you get that fun live, and who doesn't want to see that?
I'm just apologizing to all the viewers and listeners right now who did not tune in expecting a giggle fest, but this is going to be like I'm just having all sorts of fun on this one. Anyway, let's talk about that pre-recorded content you did.
Sure.
So your channel really started to pick up when you started to pick on MLMs. So what got you started in that? What got you really interested in that topic? And then what made you decide to make a video about it?
Well, it was really a personal investment to start with because I wasn't super aware of multi-level marketing. I didn't know that much about it. And then I had like a friend of a friend. It was like a friend of a friend's sister or somebody, connected with me on Facebook or something like that. And was like, hey, I've started this new business. She was like a hairdresser and a makeup artist, and some of my friends were friends with her. And I was like, great. And to cut the longest story short, I felt like I was building a friendship and a bond with somebody. It turned out very much to be that kind of fake positivity, reaching out, making as many connections as possible just to sell products and recruit people. And that, it's not like it was a close friend, but it's kind of upsetting when that happens and you're not expecting it. So I just started looking like, what is this stuff? And finding that there are millions of similar stories. And at the time I had my YouTube channel, and I, like I said, always had a bit of a consumer protection thing. I don't know why, I just am fascinated by it. And I was making videos on I was doing mostly like vlogs. And so just talking about whatever was coming up. So I was like, oh, okay, I'll talk about this. And I just I can get a little fixated on topics, and I just got really into it and started connecting with other people who do it. And it just, became a thing.
And that's like the first big spike in your content. And then the next one was when you were talking about Paul and Morgan. That was another interesting one. So what's the interest for you in that kind of content, which for those who don't know, they kind of specialize in relationships. How did you get interested in their stuff?
So I think somebody might have recommended this first video that I looked at of theirs to me, or recommended their channel, and I flicked through and I saw that like a silly thing, or it seemed to me like a slightly silly thing, where it was they'd stopped watching Scarlet Witch because of witchcraft, inviting witchcraft into the home. And I thought, that's quite funny. I'll look into that. And also I love movies, and I think the Marvel TV shows were really, really good. And I was like jazzed about that. So I was like, okay, this could combine a couple of interests. And it was just way more popular than I expected it to be. I don't know if I just didn't realize how popular Paul and Morgan were, or people are just kind of interested in that sort of fundamentalism, or maybe it was because it was like about a TV show and it was a little bit lighter as well. But it just it was a bit bigger. And then my second Paul and Morgan video, they actually responded to. They did credit me as Bella Thorne. But but they did respond to me, so I think that might have helped a little bit as well.
Do you get mistaken for any other Thorns often?
No, I get people spelling it wrong quite a lot, or people being like, are you related to like some other Thorn that spells it a different way? And I'm like, but that's not the same name.
No, as you were talking about Scarlet Witch, I have to admit, I'm so out of it, I had to look up who that was.
Oh,
just I was like frantically Googling. It's like, who is Scarlet Witch? What is the Marvel? I don't know. I don't
fair.
get into those circles.
Day job, I'm film and TV, so I'm like a bit of a nerd about it.
Yeah. So was it that, I think it was Paul and Morgan that said something, and you did a video on how they were no longer identifying as evangelical Christians.
They're still evangelical Christians. They're no longer
Oh,
hyper charismatic.
charismatic. Sorry, that's the right word. Okay.
Yes, and I actually thought their video on that specifically was really good, and the way they talked about it was really open. Their response video to me afterwards was very much like, I know everybody's trying to say that maybe we're changed, we're going to become less, less. I was saying fundamentalist, but they didn't quite word it like that, obviously. But everyone's saying we're going to be less extreme in our views. We're still 100% the word of the Bible. It was a little bit of a, but I kind of was like, yeah, change doesn't happen overnight. Just keep an open mind, because they've done. I've talked about them before because they've done some, like, they've put out some bad stuff, and it was good to see them being like, we looked at the teachings and realized that we shouldn't blindly follow pastors, and it was like, yes. And I just thought that, like, fundamentalist evangelicals saying that to their audience can only be a good thing. So that was kind of why I was jazzed about that.
No, and that's one thing. Like I gave a resolution last year on the Truth Wanted episode where we were talking about comments from my haters. Plug. And one thing that I promised was, you know what, I'm going to come out here and be a little bit more vocal about my opinions and my views. And I talked about this a little bit the last time I was on Nonprofits. Plug, where I said, you know what, when people do things, even people that we fundamentally disagree with, do things that are a step in the right direction, it's behavior that we want to encourage, we have to do positive things to encourage them. Now, I get it. It's not like we're going to be sending everybody milk and cookies, but at the very least we can say, I appreciate that you made a video about this, and I appreciate your current stance on this. Thank you, and continue to do good work. We don't have to be best friends with them, but at the same time, we don't have to say things like, yeah, but this still doesn't make up for all the other things you do. We know that it doesn't make up for everything the harmful that has been done. And if you look at the content that we were just talking about, there's a number of content creators like you, Emma, who have absolutely no problem picking apart a Paul and Morgan video. And I'm not saying that there isn't harmful content, but at the same time, when something happens, like they say, we can't just blindly listen to pastors, you know what? At least give them a little bit of credit for that. So that is the hill that I'm dying on, is you know what? Continue to encourage the behavior that you want to see. At the very least, don't put it down. What's your stance on all that?
Totally agree. I think it's funny as well. It's kind of difficult because, like I say, the Paul and Morgan reaction was almost felt a bit knee-jerk, because I think some of the atheist community was genuinely being quite positive about the sort of changes they had been making. And I think they almost sort of had a negative response to that. And so I'm thinking, is the fact that, maybe they see us as an other and we're supporting that, they see that as a negative? But then I think that the only way that you could bring people from those communities together is if you are supportive of good things that the other one does. It's very difficult. I mean, I try to be as objective as I can about whatever I'm looking at, so if they do something good, I'm not going to be like, well, 8 years ago they said this thing, so I'm not going to listen to that. But yeah, I don't know. Their reaction kind of complicated the issue for me, because it seemed like, a lot of people saying this is really positive, we're really happy with this, kind of made them have a negative response, which was like a kind of an interesting thing to kind of pass out. Like, oh no, the bad people like what we did, so it must have been, not that great.
Yeah. Well, okay. Strange. So not to move on too quickly, but I did want to spend a good amount of time talking about the latest little, I guess it's fair to call it a feud between you and another popular theist creator. And this continues along with my trend of bringing on people on the show who have been whacked by Kent Hovind. So let's talk a little bit about the whacking. What put him on your radar in the first place, and what made it escalate? It's not an escalation. You made like 5 videos, but what got it to the point where it was? Tell us the story.
Well, I think I just I just came across the first video. Somebody sent it to me or something. The Whack an Atheist that was about Simon Dan. And there was a little bit of, oh, cool, it's another British content creator that I hadn't seen before. He debunks certain things. It's really cool. And I was aware of Matt Powell, who I think at the time he had just moved over to Kent's compound or was just about to. So they started working together a lot more. And I was just like, oh, cool. Well, the universe is aligned and all these things I'm interested in. So I'll definitely react to this. And my first video, if you go back and look at that one, it's so much more positive and light. And it's me being like, I think I enjoyed this because there's not really any hatred in it. You know, it's not too bad. And then they responded, Kent Hovind and Matt Powell responded and were more rude than I was expecting. And there's all the fun of the unscientific stuff, but then also they just like, I was like, they're kind of mean. And then so because that put me on other people's radars, people were being like, oh, hey, just so you know, these are some of the things that Kent's done and said. And he's done like all of these debates. And so I watched some of his debates with other people and I was like, oh, wow, this is interesting. So I went back and I just did the second half. I reviewed the second half of the first video I looked at because people wanted me to. And so I don't know what it was, but that kind of put me in Kent's mind. And he kept coming back to me for a little while. And it like in a really, one of the things I super don't like, I mean, nobody likes it, but one of the things that super irritates me on YouTube and things like that is people who edit disingenuously, you know, who take phrases out of context and they pause and ask a question that you were just about to answer and then skip past your bit. And I think Matt Powell tends to do that sort of editing, but Matt and Ken are super guilty of that. And that combined with like a bit of sexism and just being really rude, I was like, okay, like if we're going to do this, and like I've read all these really horrible things, I was like, I'm just gonna, like, if you're gonna keep bringing me up, and because like I made the mistake of going to his live streams where they were talking about me once or twice, and his chat is just people being like, this looks like a boy, you know, like little trolls, properly like, just ugly and they're so stupid, and you know. So I was like, okay. And it just, in the end, I was like, this is like getting sort of annoying and boring, so I'm just gonna do like a big blowout and be like, okay, this is everything I know about this person and why I think that they're dangerous to follow, and then that's it. I'm done whacking an atheist and being whacked. And yeah.
You know, you touched on a lot of things there, and that, like, I'm trying to come up with a list of what to respond to in order. But one thing that stood out to me when I was watching these videos is how differently your whacking was to some men who they have whacked, and there was just such a high level. You know, there's no better word for it than misogyny there, and. So this is something that they talked about a while back on Secular Sexuality, plug, where I was completely unaware of how different it is. You know, I have my experience engaging in the atheist community. I don't have the experience of a woman engaging in the atheist community. And I didn't realize until really starting to listen and pay attention just how different of experience it is for me. You know, their lived experience is that varied from mine. So thank you for, you know, putting yourself out there and you know, and firing back on them. But one thing too is, you know, you pointed out that a lot of the arguments that they make and the way that they make them are really blatantly dishonest and
super dishonest. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, you know what, if a message was good, if a message was true, and if a message has merit behind it, it feels like you wouldn't have to resort to so many underhanded tactics.
So exactly what I said. Yeah, we did. I did a collab with Atheist Junior, and we sort of responded to Ken, you know, whacking me and asking all these questions and so on. And I kind of said, like, I'd like to see a debate he's done over 200 debates. I'd love to see him debate without saying, that's dumb. Atheists are dumb. It's so stupid. And like hitting a toy with a hammer and all these, because like there's no, if you really have the truth and you feel vindicated and you're correct, I don't understand why you would need to also be rude and use manipulative language, and it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. And now we also, I mean, we've got to acknowledge that just because someone resorts to dishonest tactics does not mean that their message necessarily is untrue, but it just makes me wonder why they would have to resort to that. It's not just Kent Hovind. You'll see this a lot, dishonest editing, or quote mining. There's a lot of different little ways that they do it. And you would be happy to point out too that it's not just theists that do this. Like people who try to sell you on scams and MLMs will do similar things where they try to obfuscate information, either make it seem simpler than it is, right? It's like, oh, this is a business model, trust us, it's sound, but not really talk about like actual numbers, that kind of thing. It's like, if I don't think it's that they don't get it. I think that the problem is they can't sell it. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I think you might be right.
To an extent, when I hear pastors talking, and then when I hear the same kind of thing mirrored back from their congregation, to me, it's like, okay, I understand it. You were convinced by someone, and now you think that we ought to be convinced by the same thing in the same way. We're not your congregation. Okay, you can't just talk to us from an altar, from a pulpit, and expect us to just eat it up. Okay, we're going to have meaningful questions, and we are actually telling you, and I shouldn't say we, but a lot of atheists are actually telling you we can be convinced if there is good evidence for it, and if you talk to us in the way that we need to be talked to about it. You can't talk to us like your congregation. We have meaningful questions, and if you don't address those meaningful questions in a meaningful way, then we're just we have lost interest in engaging with you. So
yeah, and I think that's probably the issue with a lot of people, like if you're talking about somebody with Hovind and they've done a certain type of preaching their whole lives, and then they try and engage with people from a completely different outside perspective, but they're still using the same tactics. And it's just, I think whatever you try, even if you were just a teacher and whatever you're trying to share, that's not going to work, because you need to speak in a different way to reach a different kind of person.
Well, this is a call-in show, folks. So if you have anything that you want to talk to me and Emma about, you can see we're willing to talk about a wide variety of topics. So if you've ever just wanted to call for the first time, look at this. It's a giggle fest. This is just, it's going to be fun tonight. So even if you just wanted to call, just have a little bit of fun with us. This is
have
the
a
night
giggle.
to do it.
Call for a giggle.
Yeah, but the last thing that I wanted to touch on, and then we'll get to the calls, is the idea of punching up versus punching down. And I made that comment before the show that if a local preacher with a YouTube following of like 20 people gave a word for word sermon that they may have heard from Frank Turek or any other of the larger creators out there, we would treat that very differently than if it came from one of the big names with huge followings. So what's your take on punching up versus punching down? And do you treat them differently? And if so, why do you, and why should we treat them differently?
Yeah. I mean, always. It's one of the things that's like weirdly important to me. I just feel like there's no and I managed to get this in my head quite early on, because even when you have like 1,000 followers versus like 10, suddenly there is an element of responsibility, because 1,000 people could go and harm somebody who is not prepared for it remotely. I just think, yeah, there's so much to punch up that there's no sense in punching down. And I we were talking about my earlier sort of MLM stuff, and I always, if I was talking about just sharing people's videos, even though like a lot of those, they're made to be shared because they're made to reach a wider audience and sell products and things, they're still, if you're picking on somebody who's got like 200 followers, when you're sharing that to like 50,000, I just don't think it's fair to, not only you're by being critical, then you're kind of presenting more of a negative side of them than an overall balance, and like putting them potentially at risk. I just don't like it. And I see people doing it online, and I see it from all, like sides. And especially when sometimes I look at, this is just because of what I look at online, but I look at some sort of like more conservative commentators, because I'm trying to get a feel for like a video or something, and I'll quite often see people like sharing tweets and being critical of like just tiny creators in comparison with themselves. And I think, I don't think you should not do it. I think if you have a valid reason to talk about something, that's absolutely fine. But I think it's just so much better to make it clear that what you find acceptable, and that, we're not about, we're trying not to spread hate. Because, and here's the thing, I've been at the receiving end, right? When I've talked about kind of manosphere, red pill, pickup artist kind of stuff, I have had I had a bunch of videos made about me by, and this was probably when I was at like 10 to 20,000 on YouTube or something like that. And these like people with like 500,000 followers were making videos on me, and I was just getting just streams of like sexist hate in all my inboxes. And it was just like, so there was no element of, okay, there's a difference in scale here. I can see from the comments that there's certain vitriol towards women, so maybe I want to say something. There was just no consideration. I was like, I definitely don't want anything I ever do to encourage that kind of behavior either. So I don't like it. I don't like it.
And before I get it in chat, because I know that there's someone thinking in chat right now that as long as you attack the idea and not the person, then you should be in the clear, right? But one thing we have to remember is that us content creators, we're human. Okay. And if you have developed a rather small channel where your number of followers is like very small, you are accustomed to your channel only getting that very small amount of attention. To suddenly get a flood of apparently negative messages, even if they are attacking the idea and not the person, that hurts. And
for sure,
like, yeah, like you've been on, have you ever been on your Twitch channel and you get a raid from someone who has like 80 followers on their channel?
No, thankfully not.
Right. And that even though that's a positive thing, right? These are people who, this is, someone basically said, I want to introduce my audience to you. This is a positive thing. But people who have small platforms and small channels, they're just not ready for it. So it's not that you're not attacking the idea, you're being mindful of who you're attacking the idea with, right? There are plenty of people who you can find on Twitter, you can find on Reddit, you can find on YouTube, who are willing to engage with these ideas and who put themselves out in public specifically to engage with the ideas. So to me, it's not about attacking the idea, therefore I can attack anybody who has this idea. It's finding someone who has the mental space and the preparation and the desire to want to engage with it. So it's not about so it's not about ad hominem, you're picking on these people, and not picking on these people. It's trying to be mindful of the fact that there are humans behind all this, and they have some may have very negative reactions to getting a sudden flood of, even if it's not negative, even if you're meaningfully engaging with their topic, it might still be incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Anyway, I could talk to you for hours, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to. But we've got some calls coming in. But before we do that, this week, as with every week, we will shout out our special patron of the week. And this week's patron of the week is, drumroll, please, Matthew Scholtes. So much easier than the Irish names that I had to deal with a few months ago. So thank you very much. Thank you. And if you too want to be our patron of the week, you can support us on our Patreon at tiny.cc/PatreonTW. All right, Emma, you ready for the meat of the show?
Yes, I'm so ready.
Let's do it. Let's hit the lines. Okay, first person I want to talk to here is Liam. Pronouns are he, him, from Louisiana. Looks like you want to talk about something we talked about on a previous call. I'm not sure what that was, so can you catch us up?
Yes, hello, lovely people. Thanks for taking the call.
Lovely people and
I called
pup.
a couple of weeks ago. I called a couple of weeks ago concerning a problem of separation of church and state here in New Orleans with the Catholic Red Mass. Puck, I've heard you say before that you were raised in the Catholic tradition, but I don't know if you were in it long enough to have ever attended a Red Mass.
No, I did not. Fill us in.
Well, just briefly, you can have a mass to celebrate anything or in gratitude to anything, and it's a specific mass held in honor of public servants, particularly government officials, which is already a little sketchy. But the issue in New Orleans is that the incoming mayor made that mass an official part of her inauguration.
Ooh.
A flagrant violation. A flagrant violation of separation of church and state, something which I thought that we had kind of solved in this country. But no, work to be done. So I called in and I kind of brainstormed with Dan. I honestly didn't know he was from New Orleans. And so I had a really good chat with him. And then I talked to Seth Andrews, and he pointed me at the Freedom from Religion Foundation. I contacted them with the details, and you know, this is on, the mayor's official Facebook page. This is just all in black and white, everything but a signed, invitation. And they immediately hit me back and said, "Oh no, you can't do that." And they sent a letter to the mayor, a demand really, and sent a copy of it to me. I thought I might share just a little bit of the text of that. I found it to be educational.
I don't know if we have time to go into the actual text, but I will tell you that I'm with you. And that the line is so fuzzy and so weird. And I definitely want to hear from Emma on this one, because I want to hear the perspective of someone who lives in a place where there is, am I correct, an official state religion, right?
Yes, technically.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, technically. Because they do this in presidential inaugurations too, where it's traditionally done with a Bible. There's traditionally a prayer involved. So there are things that I haven't figured out exactly where the gray areas are, and certainly if there was a president or a person in another, like a mayor or another head of state, who wanted some sort of representation of their religious beliefs in an inauguration. I don't know that I have the world's biggest problem with that, because it doesn't necessarily push it to their, I guess it doesn't have a place in it if it is an official ceremony. But since part of this is a victory lap, essentially, I don't have the world's biggest problem with that. Emma, what's your take on this so far?
Well, I think, first of all, great job, Liam. And FFRF do really fantastic work, especially with issues of separation of church and state. So reaching out to them and getting them involved is a great thing to do. I think I too removed from the situation, and I don't know the details of what it, because like you say, here we don't have that separation. There's no mandated separation. So we've had we have prime ministers talk about how we're a great Christian nation and that's where our values come from and it's nice and whatever, and it ticks me off. But I think because we don't have that separation of church and state, but we have much lower level of religious population here, so it doesn't affect people very often. Honestly, it mostly comes up here in the form of Islamophobia. It's like that's our main running issue. I think I need to know more about, I don't know much about how an inauguration works either. I don't know how public that is, or if that's sort of, is it something that it's more of a personal thing to who's, I don't know enough about the system, I think, to have much of an opinion.
Yeah, in general, an inauguration is a very public event. Like here, it's broadcast on all the news channels when there's a president inaugurated. For government or regional or local inaugurations, it's still a deal, but it's not broadcast anywhere. They're not going to interrupt your favorite daytime programming to show you the inauguration. Right. If anything, they'll have a blurb for it in the news if you live in a small enough municipality, but for anything other than the president, you're probably not going to see it. That being said, keep going, Liam.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
It is true that I would have had to have gone out of my way to even attend this virtually, but my issue with it is that I'm compelled to pay exorbitant property taxes in the city, and they're using city resources to compel me to promote a specific religious event. And not to go into, you don't want to, I'm not going to read the letter to you, but just the part of the point was that they're showing preferential treatment towards a specific class of people and leaving non-Christians as second-class citizens.
Okay, I can see where it can come across that way. I definitely can. But at the same time, it's like, you know, if somebody as part of their own private victory lap decided to have a prayer or do something with religious meaning behind it. I don't know enough about Louisiana to know if any public funds went to the inauguration, although I imagine that since it was a public event that some did. Right. So it's blurring those lines, and it definitely blurs those lines even more when you start to wonder how this person is going to handle things like legislation. But to me, those are more important. Like when we're talking about actual lawmaking and when we're talking about actual interaction with the citizens, the inauguration, to me, it's like I said, it's a victory lap. It's a party. And it, I guess to me, I don't mind too much if that party and that show kind of reflects the religious views of the person who has it, because part of the freedom of religion is part of this expression, right? And so to tell someone you are not allowed to express your religion in certain ways, that's just as bad as saying that you're endorsing. So I don't know necessarily if talking about it during an inauguration is an endorsement of the religion or that religious group, or just saying, hey, this is part of my victory lap. I don't know enough about this. I wish I did. I Googled Red Mass New Orleans really quick, but there's too much here. Go ahead.
I will admit that I have more of a, this kind of presses my buttons probably more than it does people not in my area. But I did want to get your take on something that I found thought-provoking, is that the letter makes a point in pointing out that non-Christians are a minority. And Mayor Cantrell is the first female person of color to be mayor. And to point out that she's, this seems like a sort of appeal to emotion. Do you think I'm reading too much into that, or do you think that's appropriate, or?
No, that kind of hit me where it counts. Okay, because once you are a public official, everybody in your jurisdiction is now a constituent. Okay, and you represent all of them. Including, and I don't know enough again about Louisiana to know if it's just exactly what the percentages are, but atheism is growing, right? So we're not, the biggest problem with us is we're not nearly as organized as some religious groups. So it's hard to get us all in fighting for the same political fights as it is to rally the evangelicals to say, okay, this is now you now support whatever it is that we want them to support.
Without just that's rattling off a bunch of numbers here and there.
Yeah,
sure. My interest was more in the method. I mean, we're talking truth wanted here, and we spend a lot of time fact checking. And Emma, you have just wonderful, on point fact checking videos. They're so professionally edited, and I think you're very brave to come to a live show like this, where any nut job like me can call in. So kudos there. And once again, I sense your British modesty is precluding you from mentioning the fact that you made this letter possible in part because you did a fundraiser for FFRF. Thank you very much.
Oh no! I think you're doing the right thing when you feel that, because I feel you. I think my concern would be, othering of constituents who aren't religious might make people feel underrepresented, or yeah.
So like that would be really tough for me to hear, and it would make me really think twice about making sure that I watch over this person as they continue their legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are doing a great job fact checking, and look, I really like the recent trends in atheist activism about street epistemology, and just in a very calm, patient, questioning way, get down to the roots of why people believe what they believe. But just my last point is that this appeal to emotion, and it does seem effective and proper to me, and I'm certainly not suggesting that in our discourse with people that we make appeals to emotion, but I think that we should be aware of these people who are holding obviously flawed belief that they've had that done to them. They've been emotionally manipulated. Emma, do you see a resonance there between that and the emotional manipulation and your MLM people?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That's it's the same. You want to take the same approach across the board, where This is generally something that happens. I'm going to say this in the nicest way because there are lots of nice, normal religious people, but when you're looking at the more extreme stuff, it's generally something that has happened to people that they are also victims of, and you want to be mindful of that. I think you're totally right.
No. And Liam,
I think that we've, in our efforts to help people, find the roots of their truth, I think along with questioning whether, if anything, could change their mind and how they made up their mind, I think it could be appropriate to ask them what would happen in the real world. What would be the consequences if you changed your mind? Is there some attachment there? Would you get divorced? Would you lose your job? I'm always amazed at people who've left the C of E and they're like, oh yeah, went to university, found out religion was a bit rubbish. And I'm like, and did you get kicked out of your parents' house? What was the catastrophe? It sounds so different.
Well, Liam, I'm just going to leave you with the I'm just going to leave you with the thought here that I super appreciate that you're getting involved in government at a local and regional level. That's where a lot of decisions get made, and I'm one of those proponents of trying to get involved. A lot of people don't know this. Even if you don't have kids, you're allowed to go to your local school board meeting because the results of the people who grow up and are educated under that system will affect you, right? So it's perfectly legal to go in there and give your opinion as to what should be and shouldn't be in the curriculum, and at the very worst, it pays to know. Right. So, I appreciate that you're calling out not just, religion and government in general, but to talk about something that's very specific that's going on in your area. So I appreciate that, and keep our eyes on it, because I will admit that I had no idea about this. And this is why, again, at the local and regional level, these are the people who need to be making those phone calls to Freedom from Religion Foundation. So, they get the information from people like us. Yeah, they get the information from people like us who are working at the regional level. They don't have time to find it, so we have to call attention to what's going on in our areas. So, thank you very much for being one of those people who called attention to something going on in your area. And you know what? I'm not beyond being turned around, because if someone is willing to tell me that I had a bad take about my thing about inauguration, which uses public funds for a religious service or a religious event, talk to me about it. We'll give you plenty of ways to engage with us. But Liam, we're going to let you go for now. Thank you so much for the call. Thanks, and keep us updated absolutely on what's going on there. All right.
Will do. Have a good night.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, well, I've plugged all our other shows enough, but I would be remiss if I did not plug the flagship show of the ACA, the Nonprofits, every Sunday, 3:00 Eastern. 4:00 Eastern. Just because this is the kind of content they're talking about, right? And if you would like to see some of the things that go on in other shows, we've prepared a little clip for you as to what you might have missed in the past week. Here we are. Clearly enjoying themselves and having fun, but it's only from the point of view of the shoulders, and that's all you can see is their face. I thought that was super, super interesting. It's a beautiful agony, I believe is what they call it.
Just not interested.
I think you're pushing an agenda there that's harmful to children in some cases.
I'm pushing an agenda for damn sure, and it's that trans kids have rights.
The conversations that were in sexual education concerning sex and the conversations that I were having with my friends were completely different, and they were wrought with misinformation.
Like whenever I hear people doing the preacher voice, I wonder what they sound like when they're going through like the drive-through at Taco Bell. That's like how they sound.
Number two, I would like a no lettuce and a chalupa. You'd stamp your foot and be like, "No, Mom, I don't want to go do the dishes." Well, tough. You're doing the dishes anyway, and that's your job for the next 75 years.
That's right. It's been mandated to you.
Oh wow! I've never lost my composure. They're never gonna let me do another episode. I've never completely lost it. They always seem to find the craziest bit out of context, where they like for anybody who wants to know the context of what I was saying, watch Secular Sexuality every Thursday night at it. Watch it. It's crazy, and all our shows are a lot of fun. Anyway, shall we continue on with the calls?
Yes.
I gotta recover from giggling for a second. Oh, okay. Oh, here's someone who's talking about what we wanted to talk about. Here we go. This is Aaron, pronouns are he, him, from Wisconsin. NFTs, are they a pyramid scheme? How are you doing, Aaron?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. So what do you got for us?
Well, I thought your poll was a little worded a little weird. It seemed like there was only two options: either they're the future or they're a pyramid scheme.
Fair enough. What's your take on NFTs? Oop, we have lost. Okay, well, we're gonna try to get Aaron back really quick. But this is an interesting subject, and this is kind of a new one. And Emma, you said that this is something that's still kind of new to you too, right?
Yeah, I'm still big in the learning phase. So I'm trying to figure it. I understand why people like them in a very basic level, and I understand why people don't like them on a very basic level. And that's the limit of my sort of knowledge. So anyone who can educate me more, I am very happy to hear from.
Yeah, so I've done a little bit more of the homework on it, right? And what's bothering me? Well, we're trying to get Aaron back, but while we're trying to do that, what bothers me about it is we were just talking about how if it's a good message, it's a good message, and you don't need to rely on really bad methods of pitching that, right? And so far, the only thing that I've personally ever seen and was shown, and from the people who are trying to sell me on it, is really, really bad ways of presenting information, either trying to obfuscate something by making it seem better than it is, or not being completely upfront about how something works. And then we talk about how preachers will do this, where someone sells the congregation on the idea, and the congregation who sold on the idea tries to pitch it in the same way, but maybe without the full understanding of it, right? So this is where Emma and I are both on NFTs. We are underinformed, want to know more, but this is the energy that we're getting from it. So Aaron, are you with us?
I think so.
Okay, so what do you got for us?
So your guys' poll said that either NFTs are the future or NFTs are a pyramid scheme, and it seemed like almost everyone said it's a pyramid scheme, or NFTs are a pyramid scheme. I was wondering if you could explain how NFTs are a pyramid scheme.
Okay, and again, if I'm underinformed about this, please let me know. Okay, but NFTs and crypto seem like the kind of thing where it benefits the people who got in early at the detriment of people who are coming in late. Okay. And the reason that crypto has value is because people think it has value. And the reason NFTs have value, especially speculative value, is because people think that it will eventually have value. So the only way to do that would be to convince other people that this will eventually have value, to sell them on a speculative amount to say this will eventually be able to have this value. And this has a lot of similar energy to an MLM, where if you get in early and you get a lot of people to buy into your system, you can benefit at the expense of other people who bought in late. So what am I missing?
Okay. What if you're not buying the NFT?
Okay, then you're not participating in the system. It's just like an MLM. Right, where you're not, if you're not buying into it, if you're not if you didn't want to participate and you didn't buy the recruiting kit and you don't buy the products, then you're just not participating in it. That seems fine to me. So what do you mean by not buying?
One thing they're working on. So one thing that's kind of in the works right now that it's not talked about, and it's not people don't see it because the market is so heavily financialized, which I think I agree with you guys there. And that's why you see a lot of scams, because you see a lot of people coming in and there's opportunity. It's new innovation. There's going to be stuff like that. But the new thing that I'm talking about is your digital identity that's tied to you. And so this is kind of going to be how you exist in the future, in the digital, the metaverse, if you will. And these, so for example, you could attach like your vaccination record to your digital identity in the form of an NFT. So it's not something you buy. There's no one to sell it to. It's just something that would be attached to your identity. It could serve as a digital thing instead of a physical piece of paper that could be copied, manipulated. So that's just one thing that NFT that
let's start with that. Let's talk about security and blockchain. Okay. If somehow I discovered that there was an error in a blockchain transaction, what can be done about it?
What do you mean by an error?
Like, okay, like let's say that the medical records were on there and someone puts on there just purely by accident, right? It's not even fraudulent. They accidentally put in the wrong CPT code. And now instead of having some sort of procedure like to check a blood draw, suddenly I've gotten a much more expensive procedure that I'm now on the hook for. Okay. Now I don't know what CPT codes are, so people can put these in again. We'll even call it an accident. We're not even going to call it fraudulent, right? Somebody puts in the wrong code, and now I'm on the hook for several tens of thousands of dollars for a procedure that I never had, and I can prove that I've never had it. But what happens when it's on blockchain? What can you do if you find a mistake further back on blockchain? Nothing, right?
Yeah, I guess I am not sure. You would have to go through the third party who is the one that
right.
Would
and
be
in a lot of cases,
the blockchain.
Yeah, and in a lot of cases, blockchain doesn't have this meaningful legislation like most other fraud would. Like if something happened wrong with my medical insurance billing, you know what? I have legislation backing me up to be able to go in there and fight the charge. This does not exist with blockchain. Okay, so when we talk about things like it might be a good thing in the future. Hold on. If we're talking about it might be a good thing in the future, I am not at all knocking blockchain technology. I am not at all knocking people who like to be on the cutting edge of technology. Absolutely do it. What I'm knocking is people who try to sell it to other people as an investment, because there's no meaningful investment there. An investment to me means I can put my money into something at any time. I can take that money back and it's going to continue to generate income from me without me necessarily having to get my grubby little paws on it. If I take $1,000 and I just put it in a savings account, forget about mutual funds, forget about ETFs. If I just put in a savings account, by the end of the year, it's going to grow a little bit. And the longer you keep it, it's going to grow. But I can also pull it out anytime I want to. And the only cost is I'm not going to continue to get my interest on it, right? Now, how does this, like, we already have a good system for this. So how is an NFT an investment? The way I see it, it is speculative at best, okay? It is saying this is really good technology for the future. But the problem is there are actual legitimate issues with blockchain. There are legitimate issues with what people are selling as NFTs right now. And we're not even talking about the environmental impact. We're just talking about the financial stuff, right? So sell me on the idea that I should actively invest in this. Number one, because it's going to pay me back, which is my primary interest when I make an investment, right? And number two, do it in a way that doesn't make someone downline from me suffer.
Okay. I mean, that's not really why I called the show, to pitch you on, sell you on an NFT and make you want to buy things and invest in things. I was trying to explain how there's NFTs that exist that can't be a pyramid scheme because they don't have a monetary value attached to them. And so that's kind of the point I was trying to make.
Okay. Are there any... Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Emma. Go, please.
I was just going to say, do you think, Aaron, there's a way to separate the kind of the prospective technology that could be beneficial from because it's like you said earlier, it's kind of dominated by this almost rug pull financial scam side. Is there a way we can take the good and make that a thing without having this mountain of, essentially financial scams along with it?
I mean, absolutely. And that's exactly what's happening in real time. That's happening. And so we're seeing the kind of, the muddy parts that are going on when scammers are able to get in, but it's going to get more secure and better. And then, that's just kind of how innovation works.
No, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad that innovation is going on in the way that it does. But right now, is it even possible to get into NFTs without also investing in crypto?
So one, I mean, what do you mean investing in crypto?
Can I buy an NFT without also buying crypto?
Without also buying crypto. So you can buy an NFT with a credit card.
With a credit card, like I can just give dollars for it?
Or like, correct, yes.
Okay. So if this stuff is starting to exist in a way that does
in a crypto wallet.
Okay. So so when I buy this currency, am I directly trading in my case US dollars for a direct NFT? And then let's talk about what an NFT actually does. Like what my biggest problem with NFTs, and I'll just be upfront with it, is that I can't think of anything that it does that we don't already have an existing analog for. And in a lot of cases, the existing analog is better. So two questions for you. First of all, can I just straight up exchange dollars for it and then also exchange it back for dollars, or euros or Canadian dollars or whatever, hard currency, fiat currency? And second, what do they do?
Yes.
Why am I buying it?
Why you're buying it is totally up to you.
Okay. Why would I buy it as with someone pitching it to me as the concept of an investment? Because I get it. People can buy things recreationally. Okay. Em and I are big into video games, right? But video games aren't being sold to us as an investment. Okay. We like when I buy a game, even if I stream it on Twitch, I'm not thinking to myself, you know what? I will get my $20 back from this by playing it online, and the subs and the bits are going to generate income for me so that eventually this is going to be paid for. Okay. Now, there are some people who do that, and for that, it's fantastic, but they are not buying a video game as an investment. So I get buying things recreationally. And if all you're doing with an NFT is buying something recreationally, who am I to tell you how to spend your money? What I'm trying to find out is why people are calling this an investment, trying to sell it as an investment, and trying to like, where does the return come from in a way that doesn't make someone downline from me suffer?
So one NFT that I own, it's on a platform called Royal, and Nas, if you know that artist, he dropped a song which you could buy a share of the royalties of in the form of an NFT. So you buy the NFT. This is another NFT that can be bought with a credit card. That's how I bought mine. And then you just get a stream of royalties deposited into your crypto wallet that holds the NFT. And if
Can you repeat for me really quick? I'm very sorry. What song by Nas was it? What song was it?
Ultra Black.
Okay. And you so the NFT that you bought does what exactly with Ultra Black?
So it just gives me streaming off of royalties off of the streams of the song. So as the song earns money, it just gets deposited into the same crypto wallet that holds the NFT. So I can just hold on to it and just keep that stream coming. Or if I wanted to, I could sell it and somebody could buy it, but then they would now own it. And so the stream of revenue would now be going to their wallet.
Okay.
So
Now,
I don't know if that
what
would be...
more to my interest, what legislation is backing this up? What makes it so that every time somebody listens to Ultra Black, it's feeding you? And what are you doing, and what can be done to prevent someone from simply not going to your streaming service to listen to this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the specifics. I'm not a legal expert.
And this is, again, one of my big problems with it is that people who are buying it, and to a large extent, people who are trying to sell it, don't really know how it's working. They get told how it works, but they don't know how it works.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? And I don't know to what level that you've researched all this, and please don't think that I'm picking on you specifically. All right, but if you're going to sell me on technology, I'm not going to be a slouch about it. Okay, I'm like Emma here. I'm going to do some digging, and I want to find out a little bit more, especially if somebody is pitching it to me as something that's going to generate me income. And the reason I'm buying it is because it's going to generate me income. And my benchmark is my savings account at Fifth Third Bank here in Cincinnati. If you can't guarantee that you're going to do better than that savings account, why am I buying it?
Okay. I don't know. So I explained an example that's not monetized, and then I explained an example where you get money. It's not a like I will get money in the future. It's currently happening. It just
okay. Yeah. Okay. You said you're getting money.
And then I can just
what is
immediately
what is guaranteeing that? What is guaranteeing that you're going to continue to have this in a way that, again, current systems already exist for this, right? Like here in America, we have a copyright office where you can just copyright your song and get royalty on it. But with that, you also get legislation. You can say, oi, you're not allowed to profit off of my song unless I give you permission to do it. Okay, so now what is stopping people? Like right now, it looks like I can just go to YouTube and look up this song and listen to it. So what is making this NFT worth it? Unless you are convincing people, again, making downline suffer, convincing people to only listen to this song in a way that you profit.
It's not so much like I'm not going around like saying, hey, everyone, you need to listen to this song. I view it as an opportunity where this is going to be a successful song, and I would be interested in taking part in the success of that song.
Okay, what's guaranteeing it? What legislation exists to make sure that you are going to get the money for this? What makes blockchain right now? Like right now, I actually asked someone this, and I couldn't find any personally myself, where it's basically just a contract between you and the other people on your ledger, right? But there's no legislation that backs up this ownership that you have. Right? It's a contract between you and the people who agree with you, but what actually holds that stake for you? And why is an NFT the only way to do this?
Yeah, I don't know. There's a big ass legal document on that Royal site that explains everything, and that could be just me, skipping over the terms, user terms agreement. But I don't know, it works, and I judged it as there is an element of risk because there's not legislation that you're talking about. So I judged my investment accordingly, but yeah, okay. I was just giving an example of something that in real time is creating a revenue stream, which was something that you kind of were saying didn't exist. It does.
Okay. Is this something that wouldn't be possible with NFTs? Because it seems to me like in this case, and I can totally see why you'd be into it. You get upfront, you're supporting the artist. They get the upfront support of people buying this NFT, and then you get royalties. I totally understand why you'd be into it. What's to stop if an artist has the rights to a song and they could give out royalties, a share of royalties for a price like this? Why does it have to be an NFT? What's to stop them just doing this sans the NFT crypto wallet completely? Like, I don't really know what it is about NFTs that makes this possible that an artist couldn't do otherwise.
So, I mean, do you have another platform where Nas could say, hey guys, I'm going to drop a song and you can all give me money and then I'll give you royalties? Does a platform like that exist?
In this specific way, I don't know. Like I've never heard of it, but at the same time, I also don't know what's guaranteeing it. Like, yeah, I think Nas himself actually say that if you buy a stake in this song, I am going to legally make a binding contract with you saying that you are going to continue to generate revenue from this as long as it is listened to on this platform. Like, do we have anything like that?
I think because the other ways are more complicated because there's a legal process.
Put it into the contract.
Illegal? Like, can you actually sue for this?
Whatever legal rights as far as I'm sorry.
Can you actually sue for this? Can you actually say, hey, look, there's a discrepancy in my royalty payment. I'm going to take you to court to make sure that I can get my payment for it. Like, is there enough legislation that you could do that? If there is, great. If there's not, it's...
Yeah, I mean... Okay, so like I said, there's a big, huge legal document. So I'm assuming if somebody were to be invested heavily enough that they would know how to do these things and know if it's necessary. Me, I don't have a big enough position where I care. I'm not going to go sue if all of a sudden my revenue payments stop, because it's not that big of a deal to me. And I assume that there's some sort of risk involved in this investment. The whole point of bringing it up is because you said there wasn't a thing that could produce you revenue according to NFTs. And I pointed out that there is a thing that produces revenue in the form of NFTs.
So I stand corrected on that one. The next question then would be, is it something that is strictly better than systems that already exist, or systems that could be done without having to buy NFTs and or crypto that would honestly stand to benefit the people who invested in the NFTs and the crypto before you, and for you to get an advantage of, you must convince other people to also participate in the system? Like what is, like right now, okay, for example, season ticket holders.
Very well known could get grassroots support and then give out royalties, and you guys were not able to give me a scenario in which
the thing is
possible. So
I don't think, Aaron, I don't think there's a simple answer to that, because usually there would be a much bigger legal process involved in having, music copyright is so complicated. I think having shares in, a song's royalties it would take a bit more time and organization, but the kind of payoff is the people that do that, then you would have
an organization put into it.
Well, where is it? I mean, show us something from Nas saying, yes, I agree that whoever listens to my song from this platform, and then how you're going to encourage people to do that. So this system, hold on, Aaron, hold on. So I'm seeing a lot of holes here. Okay. And I'm not saying that this technology isn't interesting and this technology isn't good, and that you're making a little bit off of it now, and that there's money to be made. Sure. Okay. Now the next question then becomes, you corrected me on that, I stand corrected. The next question then becomes, why are we still reliant then on specifically blockchain and crypto technology, and through these specific systems like Royal? Why do I need to buy into these specific systems instead of just, shall we say, YouTubing Ultra Black?
I mean, that's just how music streaming works. You can always just go and YouTube it if you want. I mean, there's still other revenue that comes from that. I'm not sure I get your point on that.
I'm trying to understand why this is the best way to get revenue from it instead of other things. I appreciate this, and I hope you continue to.
I get royalties of a Nas song other than NFTs.
Right now, the current technology.
Well-known artist.
Okay, hold on. Let me answer this. I already said I don't know that a current system like this exists. But if it did exist, and there was a way to do this, is there a way to do this without NFTs? Why is the NFT part the important part of buying into a system where? And I agree. It's interesting to buy a share of someone else's royalties to art that they made. That's a fascinating concept. I want to dig into that. What I'm wondering is why it's so ingrained with specifically non-fungible tokens, because it seems like this is something that could be done with other means.
Okay, so you said it can't be done currently.
I'm not saying that. I'm getting a little bubbling from you. I'm getting some.
Example.
Okay, so it's a perfect example of something that's being done now through NFTs, but you have to buy into it. But it seems like this technology can exist and be just fine.
You don't have to buy into anything. I told you pay with a credit card in US dollars, and you get the NFT, and then you can cash out in US dollars.
All right, I gotta. And I do apologize for this. I put you on mute because we're having some audio issues on someone's end here. I appreciate you calling, and I appreciate you making that correction to me. And this is something that I'm going to look into. You mentioned a specific group that was doing this. I got to let you go and move on to some other callers. I do very much appreciate the call and appreciate you correcting me on what's to correct on. I do have to say, though, right now that I'm not sold on the idea that NFT is at the point where it is a viable system, especially without the legislation to back it up. So Aaron, I appreciate it. I hope you engage with us, continue to. I'm going to give you a couple of links later. I'm going to give you a couple of links later near the end of the show of ways you can continue to engage with us in our community. We got to move on from now.
Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Let's talk to Scott. Scott is him from North Carolina. Hi, Scott. What do you want to talk to us about today?
Hi. I'm new to Truth Wanted. Could I have the gentleman's name, please?
My name is Puck.
Okay, good. Thank you. And before I make you all mad, could I get one favor from Emma?
Oh, depends on what it is.
Depends what it is.
Could you say the line from Ken Hovind about dinosaurs in the Ark?
Oh, you putting me on the spot. It's 2 a.m. here. Can I remember it?
Okay, there were dinosaurs on the Ark, probably babies.
Probably babies. That's it. Yeah, there are Noah took them on the Ark. Probably babies. Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah, very good. Okay.
I didn't think I would ever have a Hovind impersonator on my show.
That's the levity everybody wants after a long NFT discussion.
Entirely for that.
That really gave you a pickle. Emma has a bit of a pass on this, but what do you know about the Central Park 5?
I know that there was a recent movie about it. I know that I have not done nearly enough research on it to have a meaningful opinion, but I wanted to hear what you wanted to talk about, because I think you're talking about things that we can talk about even if they're not specific to Central Park 5.
Well, there's just been a whole lot of propaganda out about them. And it bothers me. Speaking, as far as truth wanted goes, I would really like the truth to be out on this. It's just there are people that worship those 5 guys because the propaganda is that they were exonerated. And I'm not a lawyer, so the word exonerated may make sense because it's not anything to do with reality. It's a question of what a government official said. But there's just no good reason to think that they were entirely innocent. Now, a jogger was attacked. There was a night when a lot of people were out doing something called wilding, where they were making attacks on people, bicyclists, joggers, etc. And she was sexually assaulted, and left unconscious, lost more than half of her blood. And what happened was this was when DNA was new. It was like 2 years was the first 2 years after the first DNA was used in a murder trial. So there was a DNA sample found, and they always knew that there was that sample, and they always knew that it did not match the Central Park 5. And the police knew that, and the jury knew that. Nevertheless, the 5 were found guilty. Now, I have to give a caveat on this. It's possible. Gosh, Puck, just think of it. If for some reason something made you want to do an assault on someone in the park, and you're there with these other 4 people that you just know because they live in the buildings near you, can you imagine it being impossible for there to be a DNA sample from you?
I don't know enough about crime scene analysis to be able to speak on this. I wish I could work with this because I saw that you were talking about misinformation in the media. In general terms, I can speak on that. For this specific case, sadly, I just don't have enough information about it, and to be honest, I feel kind of bad about that because this is something that's well known. Like I said, there's just a movie that was put out about it, but with you, I can't really talk in specific terms about like how I feel about it, or like you were talking about. Can I imagine? It's like I don't know the circumstances, so I don't feel like I could really meaningfully say.
I'm just thinking if you were in that position and through some magical circumstance that you and the other 4 people were going to do a sexual assault on a stranger in the park, can you imagine none of those people being able to leave a DNA sample?
Like I genuinely can't think of a good circumstance, but again, now I'm just limited by my imagination and not necessarily the facts.
Mm-hmm.
So, by framing it as, can you imagine, that's still not really talking about, is it possible? You're just asking about my imagination. Does that make sense? So I feel really iffy being able to really commit to a position on this one, again, without learning more about this case. And this is now on my to-do list. Okay. By the way, because Legal looks like there's a video about Central Park 5 on there. So let's start with that and then dig deep from there. You piqued my interest. I wish I could engage with you a little bit more, but on the specifics about this case, I really can't.
Okay. And I know I'm just a voice in the darkness, and it just bothers me that they are, when you see them appearing on Oprah and The Voice or places like that, it just seems like people are worshiping them as like gods. And everybody just needs to look into it a little more. And I might be able to come up with more information in the future. But thank you for letting me vent.
Absolutely, please do, and talk to us about misinformation and talk to us about the dangers of jury trials in general. Where a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of jurisdictions actually tell juries, if you feel compelled by the evidence, or if you feel compelled that the law for some reason is unjust, then that's why we have jury trials, right? So you can say, all right, this law should not be in the books, and we're going to find this person not guilty. But you know what? To be honest, I don't even know if the Central Park 5 case was a jury case or if it was a trial by judge.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to speak on specifics. I wish I could talk to you about generalities about how I feel about the legal system, but I can't go too deep about this case.
Yes, it was a jury trial, and by the way, it was quite a mixed racial jury. Yeah, I know the race comes into this only because of the propaganda that has come out afterwards. But
I'm not surprised.
The main thing to remember.
Yeah, but I
remember is.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
Okay, we just need to remember that there were dinosaurs on the ark, probably babies.
Oh goodness! You know what? I appreciate the call. I really do. There are. I'm going to look this up. I just saw a couple of videos just as I was just doing a very quick Google search. This looks like the kind of thing that I could spend a long time on, and it's probably going to be a while before I show up on Truth Wanted again. So I have plenty to think about and plenty to talk about. Again, we'll give you some ways to continue this conversation and continue to engage with us. And I'm guessing that there are people in chat who are hanging me in effigy for not knowing enough about this. And if you would like to engage with these people who know more about it, we'll tell you more about how to do that in just a little bit. All right.
Okay, the propaganda is pervasive. You're going to find all CNN and MSNBC, they're all going to be talking about how they're perfectly innocent.
Right. And that's one of the problems, right? Is how do you weed through propaganda from legit information? And that's something that, never mind for a case that's from, forgive me, was it 30 years ago? We can't even figure out what legitimate news is for something that happened last week. Right there, the news cycle is that short, and there's so much information that gets out there. It's getting harder and harder for us to come up with good epistemological standards to be able to flesh out the good information from the bad. But thank you very much for giving us a call. Oh, sorry. One last question. Go ahead.
Just thank you. I thought you were just going to hang up on me, to tell the truth. I appreciate.
Oh no! We're the nice ones. I want to give you at least an opportunity for a last word, and we'll get to say goodbye cordially. That's just my thing. I'm weird. Okay, but thank you very much. And again, we'll give you some ways to continue to engage with us. And trust me, they see me all over these platforms. So if you wanted to continue this conversation with me personally, I'm there. And there's dozens, if not hundreds, of people on there who are more knowledgeable than me, who you could talk to this about. So thank you very much for the call. Have a great night.
Thanks, Scott. Sorry, I didn't know anything.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and we have one last call. And it's we're going back to the subject, and I think we have a little time to talk about this because I think this hits home for you and me. This is Connla, him from UK, wants to talk about how NFTs might ruin video games.
Hello, Emma.
Hi, Connla.
You know what you want
to do we have a friend calling here?
We have a buddy call.
Oh, very nice. All right, let's hear what you got about video games.
So one of the interesting things about NFTs is the idea of ownership, and the big thing is that everybody's trying to work out how they're going to work with video games. And at the moment, it's pretty awful because it's just basically people selling useless crap and trying to make it fit as in it's valuable because it's rare. But the big fear is that in the near future, like there's some NFT games going at the moment where it's like play to earn, which is a horrible notion. But the kind of scarier thing down the line is the idea that people can start buying spaces in online games. And like the thing that I saw, it was done as a joke, but it is kind of a terrifying prospect, is the idea that games like Grand Theft Auto, people can use NFTs to buy the spaces. So when you go into servers, they're all just going to be owned before you even get in there. So unless you're in a video game, like it's that pyramid scheme thing you're talking about, unless you're in there right at the beginning, you're not going to enjoy the game. You're going to arrive at the game and everybody else is going to own everything and all that because it's all bought up with real money and cryptocurrency and stuff. And it's just going to make video games just not enjoyable anymore. There's no kind of space just enjoy video games anymore because it's all going to be tied up with money in a much more kind of insidious manner.
No, and you know what? There are a lot of MMOs out there who would agree with you. And this is, you know, I've heard about buying land in these spaces also. But one thing this goes back to what I was saying is that the technology already exists for this, right? For example, in the game Final Fantasy 14, you can buy land, but it's only in a very secure location. You can decorate it. You can invite only the people that you wanted to this, right? But this technology exists without having to go the NFT route. Now, in anything that I've ever looked at about owning land in a space, it's again buying into a specific type of crypto, not just any. It's not just any. They want you to buy a specific type to buy specific land in some only one specific world, right? But again, this doesn't seem to be any different than the analogs we already have that arguably are working better. When we talk about pay to earn games, again, you're hitting me where it counts because there are a lot of MMOs that had real life space where you are the what they call it hardcore PvP games, where you're absolutely right. If the people buying in early secure a whole bunch of land, first of all, it makes it really crappy for anybody else who wants to get into the game on their own without also buying into their systems, right? Without saying, I want to be in your guild because you have the strongest garrison or whatever, right? You're right. It ruins spaces. And the games that feature this don't last very long. Okay, it's the games that carefully isolate the land that you own from the rest of the play space where people want to just play the game, that like Final Fantasy 14, World of Warcraft, where you have a garrison. The games that separate that are the ones that last the longest. So my concern is, yes, you can buy land in this space. How long is this domain even going to last? Because as soon as it goes away, there's nothing saying we're going to refund your money. Am I right?
Yeah, and then there's question like how it would affect even things like streaming. I mean, I don't know, kind of open up to Emma how you would feel kind of going to do some kind of stream and then finding like, oh, because crypto people have gotten there before you can't really interact as much with the game as you would normally would. But just kind of throwing out there.
But there's kind of, I feel like we're just starting to kind of legislate a lot of these video game problems anyway, even before kind of crypto or NFT starts to come into it, you know, when you've got like pay to win stuff and then things like loot boxes and all these kind of challenges that we're trying to overcome. And then I think suddenly adding NFT on top, I just think it's going to complicate it. It's going to make it really difficult. And because the NFT route kind of relies on the buying and selling, it worries me. But the first thing, when you're talking about buying spaces, I was like, are we going to have like GTA is going to start mirroring real life where the property prices just skyrocket because people are selling? And then like I think of like stuff like it's the game that's like Playmobil characters that kids love.
Oh, Roblox.
And Roblox, yeah, where you've got essentially basically like a scam marketplace there, where you've got like, you know, 12-year-olds buying and selling thousands of dollars worth of, you know, merchandise. If you start adding NFTs and blockchain into that, I think I would just step away. I don't think I could deal with it because it's the legislation. It's the legislation that we just don't have. We're still trying to legislate online video game spaces anyway. Let's not NFT it up right now, please. That's my feeling.
No, yeah, and in any economy where you have free players playing in the same time as players who are paying to play, you have basically three different people in this economic system. You have the people who are playing for free, and so honestly, some of them just are happy to engage with the game at that level and play what they're allowed to play. Okay, then you have some of the guppies in the middle, and the guppies in the middle will be the ones who will pay a small amount to play. This is the majority of players of games like, I don't know, Candy Crush or something, where they're like, okay, I'll pay a little bit for it. It's a high five to the developer. You know, it's a game that I play a lot, so it's worth spending a little bit on. But all this, you know, that's not really who the draw is. The draw is you want the whales, right? You want the people who are going to spend redunculous amounts of money on your game. Even though they represent such a vast minority, it's easier to keep them happy. But the best way to keep them happy is to have a lot of people that they can whale over, right? It doesn't do any good if you're the whale, but you're only surrounded by other whales. Right, sharks need the minnows to feed off of. So the problem with games like this that you're talking about, and they know this, and that's why they're not very popular, is because games that favor whales over guppies just plain don't last very long. And hopefully the people who are designing games around crypto based on this and around NFTs that are based on this have learned the lessons of cash-based MMOs and cash-based games that have already failed. And this, by the way, numbers in the dozens. This isn't just like one bad failure. This is a consistent failure of games that that follow this model. Right? You need the whales, but to make the whales happy, you need the guppies and you need the free players who will not play if they don't feel like they can meaningfully compete where there are whales. Okay. So again, though, it seems like, and I think you're in agreement with this, there aren't anything new that NFTs are adding to this formula that isn't already accounted for elsewhere. Like
there is one aspect they're adding that's.
Sorry, go ahead.
There is one aspect they're adding that's kind of There is one aspect they're adding that's kind of terrifying, which is the whales are mostly victims. You know, they're people who are taken advantage of at a game where they're not controlling the spending very well. But the way with NFTs coming involved, there is potential that they could turn whales into sharks, because you could potentially create, when you combine it with the idea of like, we used to have like server ownership, or people who, you know, rent servers, or they'd set up their own servers personally, and it's just something they run on their own time. With NFTs, you could turn that into a financial aspect to it much more, where people could like use NFTs to buy server spaces, and then they become digital landlords. So you end up with a scenario where you can't get away from landlords in the real world, and now you can't get away from them in video games either, because you'll have actual digital landlords who own over like whole swaths of online video games, especially multiplayer games, where that's kind of terrifying from my perspective. The idea that you can actually end up with landlords in video games.
Well, I got to wrap up the show. This is super engaging, and you're absolutely correct. I'm going to leave you with a thought. I'm going to leave with the audience with a thought. And that is that the fact that these digital spaces don't really mean much unless a lot of people think it means something. So what's going to happen when these people who invest a lot of money or a lot of NFTs into owning digital land just stop having people going to that digital land? What are they stuck owning, and what is the value of it that's tangible enough that they can get rid of, again, without trying to scam the next person down the line? Connla, thank you very much for the call, and thanks for the insight.
Thank you, Connla.
I very much appreciate it. Have a good night. Have a good night. It's like 3:00 in the morning, but have a good night. Thank you very much. Well, Emma, what do you think?
Do what I think? This is great.
Look at that. You got some of your audience here, and you got to meet some of ours. So mission accomplished.
Nice crossover. I wish I knew more about like some of the stories that people were talking about, because it's really interesting, but I'm just not educated enough on some things.
I get it, and that's the beauty of doing these shows. I always do a lot of research going into it, right? Whether it's this show or any of the other ACA shows. Plug. But I always end up also having more research to do afterwards, and I completely love that idea. Okay. And I want you guys to hold my feet to the fire, because I'm going to talk to you about some ways that you can continue to engage with us after the show. Okay. The easiest way to get a hold of us is by sending us an email. You can just email us at truth@atheistcommunity.org. If you send it to that email, attention Puck, if you'd send it attention Emma, we'll absolutely make sure that it gets to the right people that it's supposed to. Okay. If you want to continue to support the show, just like we talked about earlier, you can consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Simply go to tiny.cc/PatreonTW. then you can you can support the show for even just a small amount. Every little bit helps, and honestly, like we were talking about, it's the guppies, it's the small donations that add up over time that really help making the show what it is. All right. If you would like to join, continue the conversation, one great place to do that is our Facebook fan group. Okay, this is a fan-run group on Facebook. I'm very active on there. All the other hosts are also. You can get on there by going to tiny.cc/FBTWG. I'll go on there tomorrow and start putting up this research that I found on Central Park 5. Another great place to engage with us is the atheist community of Discord. Again, fan-run Discord where a lot of hosts engage. We're actually going to be going to an after party immediately after this. So if you had some questions that didn't make it on the air, please continue to ask us. To get there, just go to tiny.cc/ACD Discord, where you'll find me and a lot of your other favorite hosts and personalities in the ACA. If you would like to listen to the other ACA shows in podcast form, we have put all of them into one shop for you. Simply go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts, where you can catch back episodes of Truth Wanted, Atheist Experience, and all the other shows on the Atheist Experience Network. If you want to look just as awesome as I do, you can get some Truth Wanted swag. All right. I love wearing my mask, especially in Cincinnati, because the area code here is 513 and everybody thinks it's a typo. So I immediately have something to start talking to people about. Get the mask, get the hoodie. It's almost done with hoodie season, but that's okay. All right. And finally, let's give a big thank you to the crew that's behind the scenes that makes this all possible. Hello, crew. Thank you very much. And you know what? I want to give a personal specific shout out to the people who have been staying up till 3 a.m. their time just to put this show on for us. Emma, you're one of them. Phoebe, call screener, is one of them also. Going above, these guys can't even talk me into staying up past midnight. You guys are here until 3 o'clock in the morning, and we love you all very much for it. Emma, you got any last words for our audience? Leave them with a bit of wisdom.
A bit of wisdom? Oh, just have a cup of tea and chill out. That's it. Just chill out. Look at a picture of a duck. Everything's all right. It's all good. The video games aren't going to collapse tomorrow.
Emma,
we're going to be okay.
I forgot to say, where can we get a hold of you? Where can people see more of you?
Oh, you can so many places. You can come over to my YouTube. My main channel is Emma Thorne, so that's pretty easy. The URL is Emma Thorne Videos if you don't want to get one of the other Emma Thornes. Got my gaming that we've been talking about, Little Duck Gaming. I'm also Emma Little Duck on Twitch. And then you got my my Twitter, Emma the Goblin, where I get a bit more spicy. And Emma and Ashes on Instagram is where I post pictures of all the stuff I buy, mostly.
Well, thank you very much, Emma, and thank you very much, audience, for all being here. We will be back with you next Friday. And until then, as always, keep wanting the truth.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat, Sundays at 3 p.m. Central, between the Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.